All right, welcome to PJ and the Beard. This is our 19 conversation series. This is episode 42. Episode 42. 2D4? 42. Wow. And we do have a guest today. So welcome to the show, Tim Lewis from TL Pedals in Canada. How you doing, man? You there, Tim?
Doing awesome, man. Thanks for having me on.
Good. I wonder if there's a little bit of a lag.
I am. Super cool.
Awesome.
Probably. I'm all the way up here in Eastern Canada, out in the woods.
Okay. So we'll be dealing with a lag, I think. But we weren't lagging before we started, were we, Pat?
No. Huh?
Can you follow me? You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we got in the chat. We got Brody Hutchins is here. We got Brian Landreth. He said he's been
nice. It's just the distance.
Looking at your pedals online. Aiden Miller says Tim's stuff is amazing. And Sean Zimmerman, awesome. Welcome, Sean. So
Aiden. Hey, Aiden, what's going on?
Let's start with the clip.
Okay.
And then we'll get right into the pedals.
All right. So I was responsible for the shred fest of a clip yesterday, and I brought something with a totally different flavor. I'm a huge Sting fan, and because of that, I know who Dominic Miller is. Dominic Miller has been Sting's longtime guitarist. Seen him play live a million times, and really great, tasteful player. Not flashy, but I found this clip of him playing with like the Slovenian Symphony. It's kind of funny. I think you'll see the picture of them kind of on this covered band shell, and then it looks like a Slovenian county fair or something. There's like 200 people, but it is an amazing real clip here of the orchestra and him playing together. So here it is.
All right. Button. Here we go. Here's the clip. I gotta start by saying I'm a little shocked, Pat. There's no shredding.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I didn't hear that, but I assume everyone else did because I didn't see people making comments. In part, the clip was pretty magical too because of that. What could probably be a 50s or 60s Strat, probably. So,
yeah,
really interesting. Great player. If you Shape of My Heart, or there was some song, if you type his name in, the first 10 videos are him playing that very popular Sting song. But great player, Dominic Miller. Great acoustic player as well. So
awesome. All right, so let's get into Tim's pedals. Now, there's a delay for people in the chat to understand. This is what we're trying to figure out right now. There is a delay between probably what I'm saying and what Tim is hearing. We don't know if it's apparently the internet connection in Canada might be a little slow, and we joked on an earlier episode about Canada time, and I'll just say up front, I'm a huge Canada fan. I go to Canada every year of my life. I'm really worried that the borders are closed. I'm not going to make it this year, but my wife and I have this joke about Canada time. Everything just runs about a couple minutes slower there, and it's one of the things that's really endearing about the country, at least to us. So anyway, we do pedal of the day to start off with. We're giving pedal of the day today to Tim. So when Tim catches up to whatever I'm saying, and he's ready to start. He wants to launch into the first pedal of the day, or the pedal of the day. It's all yours.
Cool. Here's my Honker Overdrive. So this is a take off the Tube Screamer. It was built on basically the Love Pedal Eternity circuit, which tons and tons of boutique pedals have been built on, but included a bunch of the features that boutique mods and things have been built off of. So this has no input and output buffer. It's pretty transparent. The drive threshold is a lot lower than a typical Tube Screamer. Basically, a Tube Screamer setting would be from here to here, from max and min. So mine goes way more clean and about 5 times the total drive on tap. The tone control's a little wider, so instead of that real honky mid hump, I mean, it's ironic, honker, right? But instead of that real pronounced mid hump, I allowed more low end through, and without the input and the output buffers there, it seems to really allow your natural clean tone to shine through. So if you're playing a decent guitar, it makes a lot of sense to have a pedal that's going to, protect that clean tone and that signal as much as you can, and still, add the effect that you want, but not take anything away in the process.
Right.
That's interesting. That's real cool. So a lot more gain.
Way more gain.
And cleans up more too, right? You say way more gain.
Yeah.
Pat, you're
oh yeah, 5 times the gain. Yeah. So the idea with my designs, I try to build them in such a way that not only are they rugged and they'll hold up, but also that they'll be as versatile as they need to be, so that somebody would be less apt to move on to something else. That they get bored of this as an overdrive. Well, you know what? They can run the drive all the way down, turn the tone up a touch, and then just use it as a treble booster or just a clean boost without cutting all the low end out of their signal like a lot of overdrives and distortions do.
And what's the toggle switch? Did you mention that?
So there's a 3-way toggle switch. The center position basically bypasses the clipping diodes. I'm sure that's going to trigger a bunch of comments there about the clipping diodes. It has the stock clipping diodes, and in the center it bypasses, and the other way it's a germanium clipping, which is a little more fuzzy, a lot thicker. With the drive up, it gives a lot more harmonics like you'd get from even almost Big Muff territory on the low end of its drive. So for a soft clipping circuit, it gets some pretty fuzzy tones that you'd normally only see in a hard clipping circuit. So pretty happy with it. It's been a circuit in progress for about 6 years, but the last bunch I've made all the same. So pretty happy with it.
So we did have a question from David Barber asking, how does the Eternity circuit differ from Tube Screamer?
Oh man, I suspect he's pitching me an underhand there, because I presume that he knows far more about this stuff than I do. But what Love Pedal did with the Eternity and there's another version of the Eternity that was a little brighter. Was they took the input and the output buffer out of the circuit and then just went with a gain stage with a soft clipping feedback loop and the tone control, and had a high enough level that the volume on the output side isn't really a makeup gain stage, so to speak. It's just reducing the volume. So truthfully, in this pedal and in many, many, many other overdrives, to have a purely unadulterated signal coming through your pedal, you'd really have the volume up all the way, but the signal would be so hot you just couldn't handle it. And if you're running a tube amp, it would totally just clip out your amp. So the idea is that the volume is actually bleeding signal to ground to reduce the output of the signal. So back to the original question, how is it different than a tube screamer? It doesn't have the input and the output buffer, and the feedback loop has two different sets of clipping diodes. I also have a bit of a treble pass, like a treble bleed, like they install on volume pedals and some guitar volume controls in there, and the tone section's a little bit different than the tube screamers, so that it's allowing that mid hump to be a little wider Q rather than real pronounced.
And then Dave said in the chat he found the Eternity schematic, and you can read the comment there. But yeah, Dave wouldn't send you don't freak out about that. I don't think Dave would send you an underhanded comment. He's pretty great.
Oh no, I meant he pitched me an underhand to crush it out of the park.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Thanks, BJ. I'm not a sports fan. I've never really been. I was always the band geek sitting on the floor outside the music room when I wasn't playing in high school. So yeah, nice. I guess that was the only thing I know about sports.
That's great. So let's talk real quick. You mentioned this pedal, and you mentioned liking to have the build quality, and so in your on your Reverb store and stuff, you talk about kind of your background came from aerospace or whatever. So do you want to? Why don't we do that right in the beginning? Just make kind of that connection of your background in that industry and how that got you to this industry and how you use that knowledge and what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah. So in high school, I had applied for a few things, mechanical engineering, and I wanted to be a pilot, and I had applied to college to be an aircraft engineer. And it turned out in the end that the aircraft engineering made the most sense for me at the time. And I went through and did really well in the course. I learned a lot of new things, but I had always been tinkering with electronics and tearing things apart as a kid, burning myself with my dad's soldering iron. And while I was working in the field, I was a bass player primarily all through junior high and high school. I had built myself a bass preamp thinking that, this would be cool, and bought all the parts at Radio Shack and got a doorbell transformer and put it all together. And the thing buzzed like crazy. I had a really good bass, and I was running it through this homemade aluminum enclosure I folded up in the shop out of aircraft aluminum, and put it all together. And it was terrible. It sounded terrible, but it was just really cool to take two interests that I had and kind of put them together. Well, years later, I had continued kind of playing bass on the side, but I was growing up. I had a real job, and I ended up going to an auction with a friend of mine. He was like, hey, they got a whole bunch of music gear and stuff up for grabs. And they had a whole box full of pedals. I don't know. I think there was 20 different pedals in the box. And there was a Electro Harmonix, the Deluxe Memory Man in there. That alone, I think I had fixed that and sold it for $300. And I think I only paid about $20 for the box. So I literally worked through this box of old broken pedals, and that I bought at an auction for $20 Canadian. That's $7 US, right? So I worked my way through fixing them, and then ended up buying a Keeley modded the Boss. Is it the Blues? It's the BD2, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid more for that than I think my guitar was worth at the time. And I was loved it, just really, really loved it. And man, if you guys have you ever had Robert Keeley on your show?
He's in the pipeline.
We're working.
Wow.
It's been we have a yes that he will do it, but not a date.
Wow.
We haven't been able to get. I don't know what happened, but we've been trying.
Well, Mr. Keeley, you have ruined me. That I could not justify keeping that pedal for what I had paid for it. But I ended up finding a DS1, and somewhere online I stumbled across his some of his DS1 mods and the Ultra or the Seeing Eye mod that he had apparently done for Kurt Cobain or something like that. It was more of a Marshall-esque. It took that thinness out of the DS1, which is, I mean, it's a great circuit, but another one of those input-output buffer dealies that makes every really cheap guitar sound reasonably good and a whole lot better than it is just naturally into a solid-state amplifier. So, you know, hence the general popularity of so many of those things. But yeah, so that's where it started. I think I had done 8 of the DS1 mods for different people I knew, and I guess I got pretty good at that. And the rest is history. About 6 years ago now.
So which was the first original pedal then? Like that's of the
from
line.
scratch. There was an LPB based circuit that I built on perf board, which was like a treble booster, which I ended up using again and again in other ways with a dual box with 2 effects in it, with a booster and a distortion. That was probably like the very first, real one for me to play around with and come up with my own settings. I mean, the LPB one is just a very basic FET-based signal booster, and that would be it. Mm-hmm. The TLB, I think I called it.
All right. Let's check out which I think brings us here. So this is your Reverb store. This is Tim's Reverb store. I'm gonna put a link down in the chat. There's a link in the description of this video too to that store, but we'll put the link out there for him. Let's take a couple minutes and just kind of run through. We've talked already about the honker. Let's talk about some of the other ones you're doing.
You got to check out the pink one first.
All right, pink one first.
Oh yeah. My daughter builds those. Is there a picture of her in there? Oh, you got to pull that up. So like, aside from meeting all the really cool people that I've met, this is like the real reason why I do this. Because man, if I can help put something together that gives her, something to work at and earn some money and have a job and like to do something with her hands, like, yeah, that's pretty excited about that.
So she's building these? She
is helping to build the BL booster. Her name's Brielle. And yeah, she's my bud, man. We do everything together. And she's learning. At first, she was the chief box builder and put the stickers on the boxes for me. And now she's helping build some pedals. And yeah, I usually sell those for $50 Canadian and let her keep whatever she gets from them and just write off the cost of the parts.
That's awesome.
And that's just like a super hard-on type JFET, super clean booster pedal.
That's very
so I have, cool. Yeah, I have my own like clone, which I'm sure people be excited and thrilled to hear. That's some artwork.
We have a question related to that. Brody's asking, did you have an actual clone to use in your development, or what did you use to sort of fine-tune it or benchmark it?
I do not have a real clone. I went online and I checked out all the different versions of the circuit boards that people were building. That is a circuit board that I've been purchasing there. And I just finished last night, actually, I just finished the Eagle files and sent off my own artwork to get my own PCBs manufactured for this silver version of the clone.
Nice.
So
yeah, as far as...
Go ahead.
As far as comparing it to an original clone, anybody wants to send me one to compare it there, help yourself. You can contact me through my website. I might send it back there.
That's right. It might not have the original guts back in it, but you'll get it back.
Josh Scott's got a whole bunch of them there. He could probably let me borrow one for a few weeks.
Probably.
I mean, to that, Pat and I kind of joke about, because we've had some pedals that we've done that have been like supposedly like, and maybe supposedly is not a fair word, but have been like, marketed as like the Dumble. Like we had Mojo Hands DMBL or whatever. And we laugh about not whether the builder actually got it to sound like a Dumble. And I think Dave Barber's one of his first pedals was like a Dumble X kind of pedal. We joke, and he had a Dumble there that he had played through a Dumble, had a Dumble that was there for a while. We joke about the fact that we wouldn't know. I mean, you can tell us it sounds like a Dumble. All we know is whether it sounds good or not, because I've never played through a Dumble and I've never played through an original Klon. I've actually never really. I think the only really Klon-inspired pedal I've played is for a little bit. I had the Electro Harmonics. What is it? Soul Driver. It's not
Soul Food.
Soul Food.
Soul Food. Yeah.
I had that for a little bit, and Pat has the. Isn't
the Tone Bakery. Creme brulee.
Creme brulee. That's actually got OC61s in it, which are supposed to be really cool. Yeah.
And then you also have that Rockworks one. That's kind of like a. But I'm interested in the Klon thing. I mean, I've never really had too much experience with it, so that's one thing that I kind of like to learn more about. I guess.
So quick story about that. My very first one that I built on a General Guitar Gadgets circuit board, which I built a few of those, and like they, as far as the wiring inside, for me, I just didn't understand how to keep my wiring neat. But yeah, like when I first plugged it in, it happened to be one of the few that worked perfectly first try. I literally got chills when I first played it because I had played a lot of pedals. A lot of the same pedals back to back to back to back, and like a lot of different pedals. And the very first clone that I had built, when I played it, like I could still to this day remember that feeling. And that hasn't happened very many times. And unlike many other people, I do actually really like the Klon Overdrive. Some people just like it as a treble boost, but I really do like the overdrive. Maybe the D9Es, the clipping diodes that I get them right from Russia. Maybe they just happen to sound better than some of the other ones that people are getting. But yeah, I will never forget that moment.
That's awesome. Brian said to a non-electronic type, that looked like a very neat board, and Dave Barber said yes, it was, and I would take that as high praise.
That is. Wow. Thanks, guys.
What else do you want to talk about in here?
You got to share it.
I got to put it back up. Well, he knows what's in the store.
Right. I don't.
So while you're thinking, that red mat that you can see behind all those pedals, that's actually a silicone cookie sheet on my workbench that I use to keep stuff from sticking to my workstation there. So when I'm in a hurry to take pictures, I use that, and then like the Honker and the Rat clone and the King clone. Those are a little more effort put into my photos.
So which one do you want to talk about next?
Cookie sheet. I'm pretty happy with the Reverb, the blue one.
Okay.
So that's a design. That's a design originating from a guy from the DIY community. Forrest Whites, I think his name is. But anyway, was one of the first ones to get a hold of this Reverb unit. It's the same manufacturer that makes the reverb tanks for the Ampeg amps and the spring tanks for the Ampeg amps and all the Fender amps, Accutronics. And when they first came out with the reverb module, it is a digital type simulator of the spring reverb tanks. But it has some really cool things about it that make it a little different than just a traditional spring reverb. There is some modulation built into it, which when you turn the left knob is the damper, the right knob is the reverb blend, and it literally is a blend like in the Klon. as far as the gain control. To the left is all clean signal, and to the right is all gain signal. This here is just a blend between the clean bypass signal and the reverb wet tails, so to speak. At like, I would say 2 or 3 o'clock, it starts to have this modulation in it, which if you roll the damper back, which is cutting the treble in the wet signal, I really like it. It's a little bit different than just spring reverb copies or your spring reverb in the amplifier, which I have in one of mine. And if I turn the reverb off in my amp and just run this, even with both knobs quite low, it's just so pleasant. And I just really like it. It makes me want to just sit and play guitar, which is cool, because like I'll finish one and play guitar for an hour just to test the pedal, and I'm just enjoying playing guitar by myself. Like,
That's cool.
That's kind of the point of all this, right?
yeah. It's not just about selling stuff. I mean, the point is to enjoy music and to enjoy the people that enjoy music. Like, man, I'm very, very happy with all the cool people that I've met, like that appreciate some of the things they've got from me, or that they've had them for a while. Or I've had people email me, hey, I just bought one of your pedals used in Alaska or in Alberta or something. And it's like, man, I just wanted to say hi. And it's like, wow, like makes you feel good. With so much negativity going around sometimes, it's pleasant. It's a nice thing.
Nice.
So somebody asked about this in the comments.
So what features does the King Clone have that the other pedal doesn't?
Okay, so the right side is the Klon side, and it is the same. It's a different circuit board, but it's the same exact values and components that I use in my other version. It is a buffered circuit, so even with the Klon side off, that Klon buffer's still in effect, whether the King of Tone side is or isn't. I haven't had any complaints about that per se, but I think most of the new versions of the Klon or Klon clones that people are building, they do include a bypass switch for the Klon buffer, but there's other people that are selling the Klon buffer as a standalone buffer. So that's the dilemma. So the Klon side is the same as my other clone. The King of Tone side has the clipping mod switches on the outside instead of the inside. So that allows you to dial it in without taking the back off. And what's ironic is, like, both of these, I've sourced the original clipping diodes that they claim are in them. And on the King of Tone side, at least as far as my ears go, I seem to like just the standard clipping diodes on the overdrive setting, which would be the soft switch and the DIST, like for the distortion, and the official King of Tone clipping diodes, to me, in this circuit at least, are just a little different, I guess.
That's cool.
So
there's one.
Go ahead.
That's okay. There's one thing I do different in the Klon than what all the other guys are doing, just to make the the level more controllable, because the Klon has a huge amount of level gain, even with the gain fully clean. It has a huge amount of signal available there. So I use a different value for my output pot, just to make it more controllable. And again, another one of those things that nobody's ever complained about. And it's easier when you can run your your output pot, from say 8 o'clock all the way down right through to 1 or 2 o'clock, and have controllable, manageable volume, rather than having it like, a big, 412 cab where you can only bring it up to 1 or 1.5, and just it's so sensitive. This, I find it's a lot more controllable for that. But.
Nice.
In the chat, this dying soul said, "Hey Tim, this is Tyler. Love my King Kong 2. Never thought it would replace his version 1 until you sold him that."
Tyler, I got a lot of credit to give Tyler, because Tyler really kept the brand alive for about 2 years. I had pulled away from Facebook, and he assumed ownership of the TL Pedals Canada Facebook group. And he just figured it was a good opportunity, a good place for people to still talk about what they've had or what they're looking for or what they've experienced. And at the time I had a promotion at work, and it was a lot more responsibility added, and I wasn't quite sure how much time I was going to be able to allot towards maintaining pedals or modding pedals or even doing repairs, which I've had very, very, very few repairs on any of my pedals, and I think we're almost up to 600 now. So, but again, if you build them right in the first place and use good equipment, then hopefully they'll last for a long time, right?
Yeah. But the switches will go. Josh, when we talked to Josh Scott, we did one of our interviews, which is sort of similar to this, with him. He was one of the first people.
Who's he again?
Josh, yeah. Who is that guy? He went on about switches break. Pat disappeared on us, but he said something about unless you jump out of an aircraft carrying with my pedal, he'll fix the switches because they do break. So no matter how good you make them, I guess the switches could still go.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
The switches I use, I always use either the alpha switches or E switches, at least all of my new builds in the last year or so. They're all rated to 30,000 switch functions, which if they're rated for that, then they're probably good for double that. I did the math on it one time, and if you were a gigging musician playing twice a weekend and practicing once a week, I think it was good for like 2.5 years or something like that, which may not seem like a long time, but if like 95% of the people that end up buying my pedals or end up with a used pedal of mine, if they're playing less than that, then they can feel confident that if it hasn't been overused, that it should last them quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean 30,000. You don't, unless you're turning it on and off every song. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, it's possible to switch it on and off, like probably first chorus, bridge, chorus. I mean, that's about 12 times, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess. I mean, this is worst case.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I use solid aluminum knobs.
You can't
solid aluminum knobs. So if you back over it in a truck, it's not going to crush the knobs.
So Tyler said about make sure you mention. So there's two things that we want to make sure you mention from the chat. Since we're on pedals right now, I'm going to stick with that, and then we'll get to the other thing in a second that Paul's mentioning. He said make sure to talk about, or he said you also make a killer Rampant Muff with a unique twist. So I don't know if that's something you want to bring up.
I don't have one assembled right now, but I've got the like one of the empty enclosures that are called it's the Stinger Fuzz. It's a 4-knob, and my daughter likes to call it the Stinger Butt Fuzz because she thought that's funny. Once I sell a few more of them, I'll get some artwork made up with like a little bumblebee and something fun. But I got them to do it in Klon Gold here. So anyway, it's the mids control, I used a value that allowed me to get a mid boost and cut and have a sweep at the same time, which I used the Duncan, I think it's the Duncan EQ simulator online to come up with the value, and then tried a couple. I built a few of them years ago. I built a 3-knob version, just a regular 73 ram set. And I did the 4-knob. I think Tyler probably has both of them. Pretty much have to talk about whatever Tyler says here, just to make sure I don't miss anything. I think he worked pretty hard at home to make this chat tonight. So I appreciate that, Tyler, buddy. Yeah. So the mids, there's a bit of a demo on there that the guys can check out, but like it's really, really versatile. Like if you want a really tight compressed sound, you can just pin the gain on it and then cut all the mids out, and then it's essentially just like a full-on mid cut right around, I think it's around 1K or 1.2K, which really makes it very, very just like very tight, very compressed, distorted. And there's tons and tons of level on this circuit as well.
Awesome.
I had a question. Was it a TL 808, right? So is the difference between that and the honker that this one is more in line with maybe traditional type tube screamer?
So yeah, the original Maxon 808, which I think maybe you guys remember. Is it Maxon that made the Ibanez, or Ibanez? I think, yeah, Maxon made the Ibanez. This is just another empty enclosure. It's like Kawasaki Ninja Green with a little bit of sparkle in it. This is the Maxon 808 circuit, but it has the, okay, so I'm just going to go through this in my head. It has the fat mod, which allows more low end through, which is similar to what I did in the honker. It's got the high gain pot mod, which gives 10 times the gain of the regular Maxon. So on the TL808, essentially your traditional Maxon 808 overdrive would be covered between about 10 o'clock and noon. So it's pretty sensitive, but once you find the spot where you like it, you can adjust that.
Right.
The three-way clipping switch again in that, so it has the bypass in the middle if you just want to use it clean like a booster or treble booster, and then it has the for the stock version, and it has red LEDs for like a crunch style clipping on the other way. So
that's cool.
Someday I'd be pretty excited to, like, if somebody's accustomed to using like two, I think I mentioned this when we were talking last night. If somebody was accustomed to using like two 808s, and that's just what they used, like originals or like the older made in Japan ones, non-modified, and they were like somebody that was really, really versed to knowing what their pedal does, I'm pretty convinced that if they jumped into one of these after having known that pedal so well, I'm pretty convinced that it would really, really blow their mind because of how much more versatile it is. And again, that's part of what I want to try to offer to the community, is something that's going to add a little more value. And if they do end up having to sell some of their gear someday, or if they're unhappy with it, it's adding intrinsic value to whoever they're trying to sell it to as well, because not only is it going to be built to last and be built rugged and sound good, but it can do a lot more than just what the original or the stock would do.
Right.
So then Paul down in the chat was also saying, hey, don't forget to mention your amps. And that's, I didn't know about this, so mention your amps.
Yep. I got a part of one behind me here. So I've always just trying to clear some junk off here. I got part of a head here behind me. I've always wanted to build a good amp. Like I had a Laney Cub 10 for years, and I ended up selling it and then buying it back, and then selling it, buying it back, and there's no tubes in this one right now, but put that together. You want to see the inside? That's what's fun. How's that for a rat's nest? So yeah, I've got lots to kind of learn and tweak, but if I believe if I can do it right, I can offer a good product at an affordable price, because I essentially have no overhead and pretty good at learning this sort of stuff. And if people don't like it, I'm pretty good at receiving constructive criticism to try to help make it better.
Well, I was
I got a couple in the mix right now. I got a couple boxes of parts and a few speakers on hand, and
I was going to say, when you mentioned your price point, like the price point on your pedals is really
go ahead.
good. I was going to say, when you mentioned price point earlier, that the price point on the pedals seems really reasonable. I mean, for somebody that's building them, because a lot of times you see these kind of things.
I think the U.S. dollar has a.
You're having a lag problem again.
I think the biggest advantage for me right now is just the American dollar, because the exchange rate is favorable for us here in Canada, with the dollar something at like 33 or 36% better for you guys.
Gotcha.
So when you see the listing on Reverb, it's coming through as your American price versus like on my website.
Okay.
Gotcha. And what is you can type in the chat. Can you add your website? I don't know that I found your website. So can you maybe
And I realized too there, I got to pay my dues, right? Like everybody.
Right. Or maybe Tyler in the chat knows the website address. Well, he can't put a website address. No, you won't be able to do that.
It won't let me type my website in there.
No.
It's an email, but
well, you can say it.
tlpedals.com or tlpedals.ca.
So while we're looking at that, we lost him. Man down.
He'll be back. Never fear. So tlpedals.com.
So yeah, Pete Hickson is in, and Christian, and I know you typed a hello to Ben, but Ben, thanks for joining in here with us. Couple new names here. Stu Rat, look at that guy. Jumped in here. Some new names that we're assuming are probably friends of Tim's. Welcome in, and shamelessly.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
All right. So working on the amps.
When you get this,
you're working on the amps. That's still a work in process, though, right?
totally, yeah. It'll be months before I have a final product on that.
Awesome. What style amp are you working on? We're talking like Fender-ish, Marshall-ish, Vox.
I wanted to come up with it's like a basic deluxe blackface. Yeah, just a basic 65 deluxe with no reverb or trem, just single input, a real clean 18 to 20 watt amp. Basically a platform for pedals. And I think a lot of guys are just looking for something that they can move around or haul around fairly easily and still keep up with a drum kit. But for the most part, just practice and play at home. And it might be a 110 or a 112 combo. I got speakers for both, so I'll probably make that an option.
That's awesome. So right now we're about 44 minutes in. So that gives us about 15 minutes or so yet. Any questions in the
Pretty
chat?
fun though. I mean, it's dangerous too. The first time I plugged it in, I brought a fire extinguisher with me.
Oh my, now it's a party. Brody Hutchins asked the question before when we were still talking about pedals. Like, are there particular guitars or amps that you use when you go? Like you said, you tried your Reverb Pedal and played it for an hour. Like, what is your go-to guitar or guitars and amps to check that out?
I've got an old Strat style lawsuit era El Degas made in Japan with EMG DiMarzios, 3 single coil DiMarzios in it, and I use a Fender Blues DeVille 410. That's what I got. That's what I use.
Which is one of the best-selling amps, I
I don't
believe.
have a rack of guitars behind me like Jason there. Sorry.
Those Hot Rod DeVilles and the Hot Rod Deluxes and stuff. Those are like one of the best-selling amps ever. I mean, they're everywhere. They're
Been around a long time, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think that's a great one. As far as the rack of guitar goes, maybe you're not as old as me.
Oh yeah, and they're rugged. They maybe.
It's funny. We have that guest that we had on the one field trip we did, and we talk about him a lot. Ray Santana.
Yeah, I've had a pile of gear over the years that I've bought and sold and traded, and I mean that's essentially how I'd get new gear and stuff, right?
Right, same thing, buy and trade. And then I mentioned Ray. I remember being at his house when I was younger, in my early 20s, and owned a guitar or two, and that was what he said to me. I was like, "Man, this is awesome."
My leg's unbearable, isn't it?
He said, "Man, this is awesome, all these guitars." I said that, and he was like, "Well, you're not as old as I am." Yeah, I mean, the delay's tough, but it's nothing to worry about. We're getting through. All right. How about this question?
I don't need a whole lot of guitars right now either, because for the most part, I'm only digital pedals. Digital pedals, yeah. I've had a bunch of them. I think one of my first bass rigs was the Boss B9E or something like that, and I even put it on layaway to get it. And I mean, it did a whole lot with a one-shot deal. What I like so much about the analog pedals is that if you are setting up a pedal chain and you're playing a certain style of music or what you prefer, it allows you to spend a lot less time thinking about your pedals and your pedal board and just focusing on what you're playing, because it's simple for the most part. Once you set your settings, you only have to just turn it on or off, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's probably lots of other point of views there. Like some guys just want to be tweaking things all the time too, right? So as far as versatility goes, I mean, there's some very, very good amp simulators and DSP effects out there.
In some ways, they're fun, but in other ways, I think sometimes they're not as fun. I just want to plug it in, turn a couple knobs.
As far as building something DSP based, I had looked at, there's a module. Yeah, to be able to just focus on the music and enjoy that without being too distracted. I think it's good advice for a drummer, at least, not being too distracted.
Do we lose him again? All right. Well, everybody, while we wait for him to pop back in, thank you so much for the patience there. There is, Yeah, and I think this is maybe the first time we've had this problem, Pat, where there's that kind of long lag between what I'm saying and what he's saying, and then I say something, he thinks he's good, and then
Right.
it's been difficult. But Tim's quite a trooper for hanging in with that, and you guys are too. We appreciate you sticking around. It looks like he's doing some cool stuff, and that's why we wanted to have him on. And want to thank Paul for bringing Tim to our attention and getting him on. That was awesome, and we really appreciate that. So even with the little bit of delay that's happening and the kind of problems that causes, we've worked through worse problems before. So we're still real happy that Tim is here and he's back. So do you want to, when I get that, I'm trying to keep a stream of consciousness here so when I'm done talking, right? Do you want to address that thing about would you ever consider building a digital pedal? And I'm thinking maybe you did a little bit already with the Reverb pedal.
So yeah, the Reverb pedal, it's a Accutronics module, and they actually build a multi-effects module too, which I thought would be a neat option, that if I do come up with a basic tube amp, to add a whole bunch more value in having that without taking anything away from it. And it's like we have a big group of musicians from all different demographics, and maybe only like the top 15 or even 10% are really doing well and earning a good income off of their gear and can justify spending big bucks on stuff. Whereas most of us are just living life and trying to enjoy what we enjoy, and having a really good small tube amp with a multi-effects DSP unit in it. I think that's something I definitely would consider, but not in a pedal per se. Probably something I would load into an amp that you could bypass if you didn't want it or didn't need it. So that's my thoughts towards that.
That's cool. I like that idea. I'm not sure how many true tube amps have DSP in it, because I'm more along the lines that you said. I find a pedal, I dial in the way that I like it, and then hope that I never bump it or nobody ever turns a knob, right? Because I got that pedal, I'm going to move on to the next one. But kind of interesting, like you're saying, maybe someone, a weekend warrior person, maybe to rehearse songs or just play in a small setting with the purity of a tube amp. But yeah, so. Good.
Something like reverb or a bit of chorus, I think, or even the tremolo, right? Tremolos have been in amps since pretty much the very beginning, with steel guitar or dobro or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just looking at the chat to see if there's any other questions.
Thanks for your patience, guys. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Pat, you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you both just fine.
My mic was just muted, but I don't know when that happened. How? Maybe I haven't been talking the whole show.
No, you have been, but I don't know, maybe that's why I couldn't hear the clip. I don't know. Anyway, looks like we're all back together.
Everything is weird. All right. So thanks for your patience, guys. Oh, that was from Tim. All right. Is there anything you'd like to talk about before you go?
I just appreciate the opportunity, guys. And like at the end of the day, I just want to build a good product and to try to, you know, have something that'll have value for a long time and hopefully not ever fail on you guys. I mean, for the most part, aside from stomping on these things all the time and like using them and playing with them, you know, they're bouncing down the road in the back of a truck or in a gear bag somewhere. And try to keep all that in mind from some of my previous training and experience so that, you know, wiring doesn't come apart or switches hopefully don't come apart. And if they do, then to try to provide the best service and get things back to people fixed as quick as I can, which, you know, some of our guys can attest to that too. So
That's awesome.
And thanks to Paul too. I think I caught out there when you guys were mentioning him there. Paul's super cool. And Paul, make sure you say hey to Joy there too for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you go check out Paul Ewing's page. If you just type in Paul Ewing Stompbox Steels, he has a great page. He's reviewing a lot of pedals. Actually, he mentioned having Tim on the show. I was able to go to his page and find some of the things that he's reviewed on Tim's and then get out to Tim's stuff. So great place to find out about new stuff that's out there because he's deep into it. Like he's getting, I think he has over 1,000 reviews. Maybe putting up a review every day if I remember correctly. So definitely go check out his blog and see what's going on. Tim, thanks so much for agreeing to do it. One of the things that Pat and I like about doing the YouTube channel, it started as just like an excuse to sit down and play some gear and talk a little bit, and it's turned into like, well, now that we have kind of something happening here, it's really fun to be able to support people that are doing the things that we like. So hopefully sometime in the future when Pat and I get back and start recording some regular episodes again, maybe we'll be able to get something in from TL Pedals and get that on the show as well so you can hear what that sounds like. I've seen 2 comments in the chat that you're
yeah, I'll send you one, man, for sure.
Why don't you tell us about the rat real quick and then we'll wrap this up.
The rat. Yeah, I managed to source some original LM308N chips. And again, another one that's... I'm not building them to order, but I'm pretty much just trying to stay ahead of what people are asking for. So in many cases, I got all the parts to build stuff. I'm just building something else right now. But yeah, I had the artwork done up by one of my friends locally, and he did the honker as well and the King Klon, and another girl's been doing the layouts, and Rachel Keys there. She's been really helping out, and the rat has a clipping mod switch as well, so you can bypass the clipping, and it has a germanium option. So it has that thicker, more fuzzy, if you can imagine a rat more fuzzy, a more fuzzy option for the clipping. So it gives you a more distorted, more compressed tone. And again, just another pedal that has tons and tons and tons of level. I'm amazed at how some of these circuits aren't more noisy than they are with so much gain in them. And another pedal that when I sit and start playing, I just enjoy playing guitar because, man, like the original Rats, the woodcutter comes from the early 80s. Rats were made and they all had labels in them. And I think woodcutter was the name of one of the guys that was either doing quality control or assembling them himself. And I had owned a Turbo Rat that was made by a woodcutter with the original chip, and then that black face there too. So, and they sound pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're saying in the chat. That it's amazing. And Paul said that's basically how he found you. He was looking for that and found you that way. So awesome. I think with that, I think we're gonna wrap it up. We're at the hour mark.
Once again,
Which it always amazes me that these hours go by quick. It's just they fly by. So I'll end with, thanks again to Tim for joining us. If you're new here, we've been doing this hour just about every day, but some days it's Pat and I, which is fun for us. Other days we get lucky and we have cool guests like Tim on. So please, maybe subscribe and watch for that so you can check out the other cool people we've been bringing on. With that, Pat, I think.
Yeah, with that, I'm PJ on behalf of the Beard, reminding you no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear.
Putting my 10 seconds of pause here before I hit the end button.
Right.